I hear a lot of people in the SWAC talking about the time difference between the MEAC's last game to the Celebration Bowl, then the SWAC's last game to the Celebration Bowl. And I'm not sure how big of a deal it really should be. So I said, let's get Coach G back on the show and ask him. Oh, yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current USA Today, contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can make $150 back in bonus bets by winning any $5 money line bet. That's $150 back if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. Coach G, we ain't had him on the show in forever. I had to bring him back with a bang. So I brought him back with a topic that I think is a tad bit controversial, and that's the time difference between the conference's last games and then the Celebration Bowl. A lot of MEAC people probably like, it don't matter. A lot of SWAC people like, man, that's BS. We play later than them. It's not fair. So I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go get a CIAA guy and see what he thinks about it. So, Coach G, without further doubt, let's get it rolling. Coach G, this is a question that I've always wanted to ask, and I think you're the perfect person to ask this question to. When people complain about the difference in time between the MEAC's last game before the Celebration Bowl and the SWAC's last game before the Celebration Bowl, how big of a deal is this in actuality as somebody who I would say you're probably impartial on this matter?
Personally, I think it's just people just try to find a way to make an excuse. For me, I just really think of it like a team that has a bye week in the playoffs. So, I mean, do you hear them complain? You hear the wild card team complain about playing the guy that had a week off before? No. Some of it look at it as like, hey, I have more momentum because I haven't had that rest time. Some people don't like the rest time. I personally didn't like the rest time. I hated halftime when I played. Halftime sucked. My legs get locked up, body get cold. Your body don't feel the same as it did the first two drives. So I'm all for momentum and just going right through. That's just me. I don't think people should look too deep into it. End of the day, they still have a week to prepare. Okay, like it's not like your normal preparation time is cut in half. Like you have a week to prepare, so just prepare. That's all. I mean, I know the traveling to the championship game and all that may come into play. I get it, but it's the few days aren't really hurting you. But guess what? Your conference isn't going to change it. So here we are, so cry somewhere else.
Hey, look, man, look. I am a SWAC guy, but for me, I do view it very similar to a bye week. And for me, you also have a rest week involved. So you have the SWAC championship game and then a rest week. And then you have that week of preparation, right? So to me, that kind of cancels out. Yes, they have that extra time, right? Because let's see. So Howard's last game was November 18th.
Mm-hmm.
The Celebration Bowl is December 16th. That is a month off. Meanwhile, the SWAC played December 2nd, and they won't play until December 16th. That's 2 weeks off. So obviously that's a difference of 2 weeks, but I know that you played at Union, so you didn't have a Celebration Bowl type of situation for yourself. But Coach Oliver mentioned, hey, we let these kids enjoy their Thanksgiving. So if you had to assume, at what point do you even start preparing for the Celebration Bowl if you're on the MEAC side of things? Because it seems like you're probably not doing it the first week. You're probably off enjoying the holidays.
Mm-hmm. So I say, I guess for me, it will be when we were going for the championship in high school when I coached. We did not practice. No, we actually practiced Thursday morning. Got it out the way, and then we had our little walkthrough. We had a walkthrough on Friday and Saturday. I know that's a little different for high school, but I know for college, I would assume that just due to what I know, like at this point in the year, your body's messed up, man. So any type of time just to get like a recoup day, that's probably what Howard did. They had a couple of recoup days, some active rest, they would call it. They probably didn't really practice. They probably were just trying to get their bodies right. So they probably just hit the weight room, jog, something light, did film. And then now, game week, they probably started prepping for FAMU, probably like legitimate practicing. They probably started like this past weekend.
So let me stop you there. Let me ask you this. Because I think for the last 3 years in particular, we've had a very, very, very good idea of who was coming out of the SWAC. I think I don't think that I thought Prairie View was going to beat Jackson State. I didn't think that Southern was going to beat Jackson State, and I didn't think that Prairie View was going to beat FAMU. Does that change the preparation when you have a good idea of who's going to win, as opposed to a true toss-up conference championship game in the SWAC?
Oh, it's definitely easier when you know what you got going on.
So you think they really start practicing or start planning for FAMU maybe going into the SWAC championship game as opposed to waiting until the outcome? Or that's a stretch on my part?
Once you find out who's going to be in the championship game, you scout both of those teams. That's what it is.
Okay.
You prepare for both. And hey, you don't have a game coming up. So,
right.
We're paid to coach. So, hey, double up. Hey, we're going to get a Prairie View plan. We're going to have a FAMU plan. And that's just, I'll try not to overthink it. But also, I want to put it out here. Technically, I had to make sure FAM had a bye week between the 18th and the championship game as well.
Yes.
So it kind of evens out. As much as people don't, it kind of evens out. Because FAMU had a bye week as well, just due to the SWAC having a different type of schedule.
Yeah, and that's every team that's not Grambling in Southern, for the record. Or Grambling, Southern, and I think Alabama State was the only other team that I think
they had a turkey day.
So if it's not those three teams, probably going to have that extra. You're going to have a game, skip, Celebration Bowl.
Yeah. People just, I love certain conversations come up every year when like the SWAC people get a little nervous. See,
I tried to give you credit. Talking about you were impartial, y'all.
I am impartial, man. I go by what I see, and I just know
that's true.
For what I see, well, we're not gonna get into all. We ain't gonna get into that yet. But listen, I can see if I'm the SWAC, I'm not sitting like, oh, this is about to be because one, you're traumatized from the past few. You've traumatized by the past few championships. So you have that aspect. And then realistically, when you look at Howard, they like I tell people, that MEAC gauntlet to get from your first game of the year, go through your out-of-conference schedule, a little out-of-conference. Howard has always played a tough schedule. Like, I don't know anybody really watch. They always play a tough schedule for the FCS program for the most part. They took their lumps now, but they hitting the right gears when they need to. They hitting the right gear. They look good. So I can't imagine someone in FAMU just think it's gonna be a cakewalk. No. I would hope not. No,
and we might need to dive into Howard a little bit deeper next week. Honestly, I ain't gonna lie to you, G. I missed having you on the show. It feel right. It just feel right having you back on here, split the screen, and just asking these questions and chopping it up about some of the things that are a little bit on the deeper side of football. Some of the if this was an album, some of the B-side cuts, right? So that's kind of what we come on here and we do, and we'll continue doing that. Though I guess this could be considered a hit. We'll look at the SWAC superlatives: Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and some of the controversy that came from those as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn right now to go ahead and get started. Now, if you're new to this, only if you're new, but if you're new to FanDuel and you win a $5 money line bet, you get $150 back in bonus bets. So for being a winner, we make you a winner. It's just that simple. Now, here's the thing about FanDuel. You can go in the NBA, right? So let's see. Tonight, you'll have the Pelicans versus the Lakers in the play-in tournament on the west side. I'm trying to think on who's on the east side. East side. I can't remember. I think the Bucks are in there though. I think it's the Bucks and the Pacers. So you have the in-season tournament about to come to a head. Which of these teams is going to make it to the finals? They in Vegas right now, right? You got Brandon Ingram, you got Zion Williamson, you got LeBron James, you got Tyrese Halliburton, you got Giannis Antetokounmpo, you got Dame Lillard, you got ballers everywhere. Did I miss any stars? I don't think so. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't miss any stars. But you got players, man. Go ahead and put the over or the under. Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn and test your knowledge. I appreciate you for continuing making this your first listen of the day every day. And as we continue rolling with today's episode of Locked On HBCU, we have our good friend, Coach G, a return, right? We've been waiting. We're waiting 12 weeks, but it's okay because you had a job to do and we're proud of you. Congratulations on that as well. I meant to say that at the beginning. Congratulations on your first year at Lincoln, my guy. We're going to look at the SWAC superlatives. FAMU won the Coach of the Year, the Offensive Player of the Year, and the Defensive Player of the Year. Now, I'll ask you this question, and take aside if you feel like somebody else was more deserving, but do you feel like all three of those gentlemen were deserving of their award? Remember, not the most deserving, but just in general, did they have a Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year type of season?
If we're comparing them to who I think should have got in.
That's the next question. But just period. just period. Take everybody else out and you look at Jeremy Moussa. Did he look like an Offensive Player of the Year? Take everybody else out. Did Isaiah Major look like a Defensive Player of the Year? I can stop involving Willie Simmons in this because I almost feel disrespectful. But he clearly had that. Let's remove
that was his, because everybody just was waiting for FAMU to FAMU, and they didn't FAMU.
Yeah. So let's remove him from it. I don't think there's any controversy. My fault, shotgun. All right, I don't mean no disrespect, but Moussa and Major were really the controversial figures.
Yeah.
So let's start with their case before we compare them to anyone else.
I'm basing it strictly off how I've learned our conferences, and not maybe just our conferences, but I'm just going to speak on HBCU. Our conferences, when you have the best team, they usually try to pick the best player from each side of the ball from that team to win. Right. Usually, that's usually what they want to lean on. Sometimes teams make it hard. Players make it harder than needs to make it harder than others. But when you just have, FAMU just running away with the SWAC, I just knew that that's what the award. So I wasn't shocked. Right. I wasn't shocked, but just because I wasn't shocked, I particularly, agree. Now I have I have biases, not biases. I have who I thought was the dominating player on the defensive side of the ball in the SWAC.
So let's get into it. Now let's get into who your guy is. Because at the end of the day, we don't need to tap dance around what the real issue is. The real issue is a lot of people felt like there was more deserving candidates. Now I have my thing on the offensive side, but let's get to your defensive side first.
Just put this out here. I love Isaiah Major's game. Not taking anything I'm about to say away from him. I've been very high on Isaiah Major for years, so I'm not even that's not even the case. But realistically, domination was Ckelby Givens. The boy lost his mind whole year. He's so bendy. Now I'm looking just from I try not to look at everything. My criteria is a little different than everybody else's, but he is what you call a game wrecker. When Southern's defense were having their lapses, he always popped on film. Very bendy, quick get off, violent hands. You could tell he has some really good coaching. I think his coach ended up going to Ohio State. He coaches at Ohio State now.
Okay.
So he's about 6'2", 6'3-ish. He looked about 240. I'll say primarily he'll be a 5 tech. He's a 5 technique. You could slide him the odd front, will backer, but you don't really want to put him in coverage too often. You want him to move forward, and he does that very well. I mean, I think, his sack numbers weren't high, but his hurry and pressure numbers were out through the roof. He's always in the back row. He's a game record. Good change of direction. He actually plays a run very well for someone that's a little slight in build. I like his game. Heavy hands. When he kind of we call it knockback. When he hits offensive linemen, they go the other way. But he also has a shiftiness to be able to drop his levels and get around the offensive lineman as well. So I like him. I really do. I think he was the most dominant player that I've watched for the defensive side. But Isaiah Major has a case too, because at the end of the day, he is the central part of that defense. The people say that FAMU has the best defense in HBCU football. Stat-wise, yeah, but everybody knows it's Morgan State. But because they played a tougher schedule, they played better. They played better offenses, and they made players that we thought were like really good look okay at times.
That's fair.
And so I'm not saying that FAMU hasn't played a Davius Richard.
Right. No, that's true.
And, they made Quentin work. I mean, they made that offensive line at Howard work. So, and when you watch Eric Hunter play, definitely in the beginning of the year when he was playing against that FBS competition, those out of conference games, the domination out of conference. Now, that's what really I think what Isaiah Major did against South Florida. I think I was like, okay, it's gonna be tough for somebody to go over this guy. He lost his mind versus South Florida. That was his best game.
It matters.
Yeah, it matters. Now, granted, it was a long time ago, but people can't take that out of their head. That's what I look at. I look at how are you versus out of conference, and how are you, versus, if you go to a play against a top school, or not top school, a higher level school, quote unquote. I look at that. So so naturally, granted that game will probably play in a lot of folks' minds, Isaiah Major, but Isaiah Major has found a way to just be productive throughout the year. Yeah, the stats may not wow you because certain defenses aren't catered around one guy making a lot of tackles. Other defenses are catered
around. Say a name, man. We know who you're talking about.
Listen.
Defense being catered around a player making a lot of tackles.
Oh, well, I can talk about it's two people. It's Jacob Williams from Texas.
Hold on now.
Him, Jacob Williams, Texas Southern, and Bubba Adams, their defenses are catered. And like the thing about Jacob Williams missed he missed so many tackles. He would have had
G, this was not the name I was telling you to say now. Now, when I said say a name, I wasn't talking about my guy, but you didn't take it there. And I think that this is a good point because I do want to hear about it because I haven't been able to catch every single TSU game. And I did think that some of the stats lended him to being in certain conversations. So let's talk about Jacob Williams,
He's a linebacker with, I think it was 18.5 tackles for loss. Bro, that's insane at linebacker.
And I felt like he deserved to be in more conversations about this.
But guess what? He ain't winning. It's nothing to talk about. That's just how not just black colleges, but that's just how most colleges work. Your best team needs to be represented. All right, so put it like this, right? Imagine 11-0 team, pretty much. Well, they were pretty much. The South Florida game, they should have won. I ain't gonna get into all that. But pretty much undefeated FCS team, undefeated within the FCS, whatever. So we call it like that. Team. As a team, they're 11-0, but they don't have a player that's the best at their position all throughout the roster. Is that a thing? Let's see. Can you argue that Moussa is not the best quarterback in the SWAC this year? Can you argue that? Could someone say Aaron Allen? Can you? I don't know. That's up for y'all to debate. I'm just saying it needs to.
It's tough.
You can't. There's no way that the SWAC was gonna go without. If there's like a shadow of a doubt, we're just gonna give it to the guy on the best team. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, people might. Bubba had way better stats. That's a major, but there was still that winning component that's still lingering. It's like, okay, if we give it to Bubba, and we definitely got to give it to somebody else for the offensive side, and we definitely got to make sure we give it to head coach to Willie. So I just think, just looking at the trends, don't harp too hard on it. End of the day, it's okay. The guy that didn't win Defensive Player of the Year, Bubba, I'm sorry, brother, but you went first team all SWAC. What was it, 2 years in a row?
Mm-hmm.
I get it. It's not ideal, but just keep doing what you're doing. And I think he come back for another year. So that's good for him.
So, I can't stop harping on it, but I will in a second. As we continue, I want to point out what to me, is the difference between Isaiah Major and his Defensive Player of the Year versus Jeremy Moussa and his Offensive Player of the Year. You doggone right, it's time for me to put my TSU hat on as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode of Locked On HBCU is brought to you by PrizePicks, and PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. I've been terrible at fantasy this year. My friend was on the phone, last night, just making fun of me for how bad I was at fantasy. I'm not good with competing against other people. Let me know I'm going to tell you what I think these players can do. Right? Zion Williamson, over or more or less than 25.5. Riddle me that, Batman. Zion Williamson, more or less than 25.5. Brandon Ingram, more or less than 3.5 assists. As you can tell, my mind is straight Pelicans. That's the first thing my mind goes to. The first thing your mind needs to go to is PrizePicks, specifically prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. And when you get there, use the code LockedOnCollege. You have to use the code LockedOnCollege, and your first deposit will be matched up to $100. And that's wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU. I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. I got my guy, Coach G, with me, man. I'm telling y'all, it feel good. It feel good. I'm going to have to find reasons to keep running it back until next season comes up again. But I want to illustrate to me the difference between Jeremy Moussa and Isaiah Major. Now, some will say that I'm biased. Whatever. I don't believe so. I will admit when I am, and this is not one of those times. To me, Major was great. You can look at Major and say, oh, that's a great player, at multiple times during the season. Oh, yeah, he's really good. He might not have had the stats as others, but you did feel like, oh, this is a really good player. When I watched Moussa, I didn't walk away with that. So when I watched Moussa on multiple times, and I felt as if, hey, man, this guy, he's inconsistent. He's not doing it for me in multiple moments. People asking for him to be benched. I think that was the difference between Major and Moussa as a player. So that's why I was okay with Major getting that team success bump, and then I wasn't okay with Moussa. And I'll add this one last thing for you before you jump in. I thought that Ladarius Owens, who I think was the rightful winner, he had a great season. I mean, nationally ranked. And I think when you have that compared to what Moussa did, I think that was enough to close the success gap. A drastic individual difference and a drastic team difference. In an individual award, I'm giving it to the drastic individual difference. What is your response?
I'm definitely in the minority with you. And I have no bias. I'm a Grambling fan personally. But,
right? Yeah, no, we don't went through this.
Yeah, everybody know, but I love Chance Williams. I
think he's really good. I think both of the running backs are really good.
Oh yeah, him and Chalk, dynamic. Love them both. What Owens did this year versus what everybody would say pretty much are the top defenses in Black college for the most part. I would say people like Jackson State's defense, Southern's defense, FAMU's defense, and guess he kind of cooked them all. I think he probably averaged about 180 yards a game between those 3 games. The kid.
Shout out to the Rattlers, because I was there. I saw the difference, right? Like, I saw the first half versus second half. Yes, there was a difference.
No one gave Texas Southern.
It's situational. It's completely. But yes, we'll get into that. We'll get into that off air when we talk about the first half versus second half of TSU FAMU, because I know that's what Rattlers are waiting to come in and say when they hear that Ladarius Owens had a good game against him. It was just the first half. He didn't do anything in the second half. I think there's a little bit more context that needs to be used for that argument, but I see what they're saying because I was literally there for the game. But
hey, when you only think smoking, I mean, that's when you're all you got. There's no three-headed monster. There's this little 5'9", 180-pound running back just running through everybody. He ran through Alcorn, Southern, and FAM. So pretty much people would say those are out of the top 5, those are like top 3 defenses in Black college football. So let's say the top 3 for me, FAMU, let's say Alabama State and Morgan, the top 3. You'll throw Alcorn and Southern in there too.
Mm-hmm.
And he smoked 3 out of the top 5. Like, that was good.
All the ones he could too.
He played well.
Mind you, he didn't play Morgan or Alabama State. He didn't have a chance to do it to them.
No, he didn't.
So everyone that he played at that top 5.
Mm-hmm. And credit to Texas Southern offensive line. You know, Jack Nance and the boys, they did what they had to do too. Now there were times where you see, Darius had to get out the mud a couple times, literally, but he definitely showed that he was the most dynamic guy with the ball in his hand, maybe outside of Marcus Riley, who I would have put personally. Marcus Riley is the best offensive player on FAMU's team.
Mm-hmm.
I love Marcus Riley. I think he had the shot to. I would have given, if you want to give it to anybody from FAMU just based on impact, that being dynamic, you got to give it to him. But most of the time, it's a quarterback award unless the running back does something phenomenal. And I guess averaging almost 180 yards a game versus the top defenses in the conference is not enough. So
I guess not.
Hey, listen, listen, it happens, dog. It's cool. Yeah. I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why, I would say shout out to the CIAA because Isaiah Freeman, our quarterback, we only won 4 games, but we got player of the year because guess what? It was just night and day. Anybody, like, it wasn't even close. The second guy. So that makes sense. You know what I mean? If there was if the quarterback, I don't know, say if Jada went for maybe like 1,600, 1,800, something like that. Okay, it was easier, but what Zay was able to do, and Jada having good stats, but not out of this world, it was like, okay, yeah, they're the best team, but let's give it to the quarterback at Lincoln that literally was doing this thing for the most part of the whole year. So,
and that's what I felt like this was. But I get it. Positional value also made a difference because one's a quarterback and one's a running back.
You saw that. Folks about to be mad about the MEAC.
Has it came out?
Yep. I told people.
For the record, y'all, we're recording this on Tuesday. This isn't going to come out Wednesday morning or anything, but this came out.
Kenny Gallup won, and I told people, don't be shocked if they give it to the best defensive player on the team going to the Celebration Bowl. I said it between Eric Hunter and Kenny Gallup. That was it. And I think Kenny Gallup is deserving, but I would have loved to give that to Eric Hunter. However, I told people, don't be shocked if they give it to Kenny Gallup because he's on the best defense. He's on the best, not the best, but he's on the defense that's going to the Celebration Bowl. I'm just calling with it, but not to take anything away from Kenny G because Kenny G. He has improved immensely on defense this year. Still a solid run defender. His coverage skills he's playing man, off man, press man. He plays deep third. Like he's in court. Like this kid has blown me away with his ability to cover this year. Yeah. Blown me away. So like I can see why. I'm not mad at it. Both players are deserving, but trust me, the same way Alabama State was trying to make Isaiah Major feel bad, I wouldn't be shocked if Morgan fans, well, whatever little group of Morgan fans on Twitter try to come together and try to just wreck shop.
And this is coming from a man whose father is a Morgan State Hall of Famer. I want y'all to realize this is as impartial. Like sometimes you got to take away allegiances and things. That's how you know how true he feels about this. If he was going to be biased, it would be towards Morgan State and Virginia Union. Like if you were going to do that,
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's why people rock with me because they know. Listen, I'll pick against Union. I don't care because I don't think they're gonna win. I don't think they're gonna win. So listen, but that's why when I go places, it's usually love because they're like, hey, you said we weren't gonna be there. I'm like, yeah, I did, but y'all do your thing. We good though. It's all love. So I don't know. That's just I always feel like just be forthcoming. Life's a little easier, but. Yeah, congrats, Kenny G. You deserved it, my brother.
Did Richard win Offensive Player of the Year?
Of course he did.
And that feels like that dismissal. I feel like we got to go ahead and rock and go ahead and get up out of here, man. But I appreciate you sincerely. I got a couple more questions. I don't know if I'll do it on after we get out of here or we'll come back on here to talk about the transfer portal. I don't know, but we'll get into it at some point. But I appreciate y'all for making this your first listen of the day. Every day. In case you forgot, make sure you follow my guy Gerald Huggins on X, social media, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Coach_Huggins Jr. That's JR, Coach_Huggins Jr. on Twitter. I'm gonna still call it Twitter, but in the meantime, in between time, we be back next week because this is probably gonna drop on Friday. Let's go ahead and jump in right here. So this is not going to be our Friday episode. Instead, today is Thursday. It's airing clearly. You see that that's not the truth. But on tomorrow's episode, we'll have former Bowie State defensive lineman and current Washington Commander Joshua Pryor on the show to not only detail one of the cooler initiatives that you're going to see in the NFL, which is the Washington Commanders HBCU Night Out. Only a few teams have HBCU nights. But then also let's talk about his story. Going to Bowie State, his time at Bowie State, and then also his time from Bowie State to Washington. It's all important. So we'll look at that on our first feature Friday of the winter. So until next time we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.